Right now, billions of people around the world are caught in a collective trance. They're buying things they don't need with money. They don't have to impress people they don't even like. They're setting resolutions they'll abandon by February. They're waiting for a magical date on the calendar to finally become who they've always wanted to be. They're participating in rituals they've never questioned, assuming that because everyone does it, it must mean something. And no one is telling them the truth. No one is pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. No one is asking the uncomfortable questions that could actually set them free. Until now. What I'm about to share with you isn't popular. It won't make me friends at holiday parties. It challenges beliefs that most people hold sacred. But if you stay with me until the end, you might experience something rare. Genuine clarity about what this season actually is, what it's doing to your mind, and how the ancient Stoics would view the collective madness we call the holidays. This isn't about being a Grinch or hating joy or rejecting celebration. The Stoics weren't joyless ascetics. They appreciated genuine pleasure and meaningful connection. But they were ruthlessly honest about distinguishing reality from illusion, substance from appearance. What actually matters from what we're told should matter. And when you apply that honest lens to Christmas and New Year's, what you see might disturb you. But it will also free you. Let's start with the most obvious illusion, the idea that these dates are somehow special. December 25th, January 1st. What makes them different from December 24th or January 2nd? The answer, when you really examine it, is nothing. Absolutely nothing except the meaning we collectively agree to assign. The sun doesn't shine differently on Christmas morning. The laws of physics don't pause for New Year's Eve. Your problems don't magically reset when the calendar flips. The universe is completely indifferent to our human calendar and the significance we attach to certain squares on it. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote about the vastness of time, about how all human events are temporary ripples in an infinite ocean. He would look at the grand celebrations of Rome and see them for what they were, brief performances that would be forgotten within generations. The emperors who threw the most lavish festivals are now dust. The celebrations that seem so important are barely footnotes in history, and yet we act as if these dates have inherent power. As if Christmas must be magical, as if New Year's must bring transformation. We've been so conditioned by culture, by commerce, by collective behavior that we've stopped asking whether any of it is real. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Christmas, as we celebrate it today, has almost nothing to do with its supposed origins and everything to do with commerce. The gift-giving frenzy, the decorations, the specific traditions we consider essential, most of them were invented or popularized in the last 200 years, often by companies selling products. The Christmas tree became popular partly through clever marketing. Santa Claus, as we know him, was shaped significantly by Coca-Cola advertisements. The expectation of elaborate gift exchanges was manufactured by retailers who realized they could create demand by establishing social obligations. What feels like ancient tradition is often recent invention dressed in nostalgic clothing. I'm not saying this to ruin your childhood memories. I'm saying it because the Stoics valued truth above comfort. Epictetus taught that we should examine our beliefs and discard those that don't hold up to scrutiny. When you examine the beliefs surrounding Christmas, what you find is a mixture of religious elements, pagan holdovers, and commercial propaganda, all blended together and presented as if it were a coherent, meaningful whole. The Stoics would ask, what is actually valuable here? Is it the specific date? No, that's arbitrary. Is it the gift exchanges? Those have become sources of stress, debt, and obligation more than joy. Is it the family gatherings? Those can be meaningful, but they don't require a specific date or commercial framework. What's actually valuable, the Stoics would say, is genuine connection, gratitude, presence, and love. And here's the thing, you can have all of those any day of the year. You don't need permission from the calendar. You don't need to wait for December to appreciate your family, express love, or feel grateful. The idea that these experiences are somehow more valid or powerful on certain dates is the illusion. If this perspective is starting to open something in your mind, hit the like button. It tells me you're ready to think beyond what you've been told. Now let's talk about the pressure, the enormous, crushing pressure that this season creates. Pressure to be happy, pressure to create magical experiences, pressure to buy the right gifts, pressure to attend every gathering, pressure to feel things you might not actually feel. Think about what this does to people. If you're struggling financially, Christmas becomes a source of shame and stress as you try to meet expectations you can't afford. If you've lost someone, the holidays amplify grief as you're surrounded by images of perfect families. If you're alone, the emphasis on togetherness makes isolation feel more acute. If your family relationships are complicated, as most are, forced gatherings become minefields of tension. The Stoics would look at this pressure and ask a simple question: is this rational? Is it rational to create a system where people feel obligated to spend money they don't have? Where people feel guilty for not being happy enough? Where the gap between expectation and reality causes widespread suffering? Seneca wrote extensively about how we create our own suffering through irrational beliefs and expectations. The holiday season is a perfect example. We've constructed an elaborate set of expectations about how things should be, and then we suffer when reality doesn't match. But the expectations themselves are the problem. They're not laws of nature. They're social constructs that we could simply choose to reject. Let me give you some specific examples of how these expectations cause harm. A single mother working 2 jobs feels crushing guilt because she can't provide the Christmas her children see advertised. A man who recently lost his wife is expected to show up cheerful at family gatherings. A young person struggling with depression is told this is the happiest time of year while feeling emptier than ever. A family deep in debt adds more debt because not giving expensive gifts would be shameful. In each case, the suffering comes not from reality, but from expectations about what reality should be. The single mother's children would be happy with her presence and love. The widower needs space to grieve, not forced cheerfulness. The depressed person needs understanding, not pressure to perform happiness. The indebted family needs financial wisdom, not social obligations that deepen their problems. The Stoics developed sophisticated tools for managing expectations. They practiced negative visualization, imagining things going wrong in advance so that when difficulties arose, they weren't surprised. They practiced acceptance of what is, rather than attachment to what should be. They reminded themselves constantly that externals are not up to us, that only our responses are within our control. Applied to the holidays, this means expect nothing. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a freeing way. Don't require the season to deliver specific experiences. Don't need people to behave in specific ways. Don't expect feelings to arrive on schedule. Simply meet whatever arises with equanimity, appreciating what's good, handling what's difficult, attached to none of it. This might sound like a recipe for a flat, emotionless experience, but actually it's the opposite. When you release expectations, you can actually receive what's present. You're not comparing reality to some ideal and finding it lacking. You're simply present with what is. And often what is, when actually received rather than judged against expectations, is quite good. Here's something that might shock you. You don't have to participate. You don't have to buy gifts you can't afford. You don't have to attend gatherings that drain you. You don't have to pretend to feel things you don't feel. You don't have to play along with expectations that don't serve you. I know this sounds radical. We're so conditioned to see holiday participation as mandatory that opting out feels like transgression. But the Stoics were clear. You are not obligated to follow customs that conflict with reason and well-being. You can create your own relationship with this season. You can keep what's genuinely meaningful to you and discard the rest. This isn't about being contrarian or difficult. It's about sovereignty over your own mind and choices. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire, and even he had to constantly remind himself that he could choose his own responses, that external pressures only had power if he gave it to them. You have the same choice. Now let's examine the New Year's illusion, which in some ways is even more insidious than Christmas. At least Christmas has some genuine elements of connection and gratitude mixed in with the commercial nonsense. New Year's is almost pure illusion. The idea that January 1st represents a fresh start is one of the most widespread and harmful myths in our culture. Think about what it implies, that you can't start fresh today, that you need to wait for a specific date, that the calendar somehow grants permission for transformation. This is backwards. Every single moment is an opportunity for fresh start. Every breath you take is a chance to choose differently. The Stoics understood this. They practiced what might be called radical present moment awareness. Each day, each hour, each moment was complete in itself, an opportunity for virtue and growth. Marcus Aurelius didn't write in his journal on January 1st about his New Year's resolutions. He wrote constantly, throughout the year, about how to be better right now, today, in this moment. He understood that waiting for special dates to begin transformation is just a form of procrastination dressed up as planning. And let's look at the evidence. How well do New Year's resolutions actually work? Studies consistently show that the vast majority of resolutions fail within weeks. By February, most people have abandoned their ambitious January goals. By March, they've often forgotten what they were. Why? Because the entire premise is flawed. You can't outsource transformation to a calendar date. Change requires daily practice, moment-to-moment choices, consistent effort over time. It doesn't happen because you declared it on a specific night while watching fireworks and drinking champagne. Let me explain the psychology of why New Year's resolutions fail so consistently. First, they're often made in a state of emotional elevation, at a party, caught up in the collective energy of transition. Decisions made in emotional states rarely survive the return to normal life. Second, they're usually too ambitious, too vague, and too numerous. People resolve to get healthy, or be happier, or succeed more without specific plans, systems, or even definitions of what these things mean. Third, they're not connected to daily practice. A resolution is a statement of intention, not a system for change. Without concrete daily habits, intentions evaporate. The Stoics would see New Year's resolutions as a perfect example of what they called empty wishes, intentions without infrastructure, desires without discipline. Seneca wrote that it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And one of the ways we waste it is by constantly deferring action to future dates that we've arbitrarily designated as significant. Marcus Aurelius didn't make annual resolutions. He made daily ones. Each morning, he would prepare himself for the challenges ahead. Each evening, he would review how he did. His improvement was incremental, steady, and constant. It wasn't attached to calendar milestones. Epictetus taught his students that philosophy, the love of wisdom, was something to practice every single day, not something to plan for some future date. He would have found the concept of New Year's resolutions absurd. You want to be wiser? Start now. You want to be more disciplined? Begin today. You want to change your life? Change this moment. Here's the deeper problem with the New Year's mythology. It lets you off the hook for the present. If transformation starts on January 1st, then you don't have to start today. You can continue your current patterns for a few more weeks or months, telling yourself that you'll change when the calendar permits. This is a trap. Every day you delay is a day lost. Every moment you spend waiting for permission is a moment you could have spent actually changing. The Stoics were adamant about this. The time for virtue is now, not later, not when conditions are perfect, not when the calendar says so. Epictetus taught that we should begin the philosophical life immediately, not when we've finished some other task or reached some other milestone. The parallel to New Year's thinking is obvious. We tell ourselves we'll become the person we want to be, starting January 1st. But why not today? Why not this hour? Why not right now? The only honest answer is that we don't really want to change. We want the feeling of planning to change. We want the hope that comes with imagining a future self without doing the work to become that self. New Year's resolutions are often less about transformation and more about emotional comfort, a way of telling ourselves that better times are coming without actually creating them. Subscribe to this channel if this is making you think. Most content out there reinforces the illusions. This channel is about seeing clearly, even when clarity is uncomfortable. Let's go deeper into the commercial manipulation that drives so much of this season, because understanding how you're being manipulated is the first step to freeing yourself. The holiday shopping season is not an accident or a natural expression of human generosity. It's a carefully engineered profit machine that exploits psychological vulnerabilities. Retailers spend billions studying how to make you buy things you don't need. They create artificial urgency with limited time sales. They leverage social proof by showing you what everyone else is supposedly buying. They manufacture obligation by establishing gift-giving norms that require reciprocity. The Stoics were deeply suspicious of this kind of manipulation. They valued autarkeia, self-sufficiency, the ability to be content with what you have rather than constantly chasing more. They saw the pursuit of unnecessary possessions as a form of slavery, a surrender of freedom to external things. Consider what happens during holiday shopping. You feel pressure to buy gifts. This pressure comes from social expectations that were largely created by those who profit from your spending. You then spend money, often going into debt, to satisfy expectations that were manufactured to benefit others. You're essentially being used as a wealth transfer mechanism, moving your resources into the pockets of corporations while telling yourself it's about love and generosity. The Stoics would find this absurd. If you love someone, you can express that love in countless ways that don't involve enriching retailers. You can spend time with them, you can help them with problems, you can listen to them deeply, you can write them a letter expressing what they mean to you. These expressions of love are often more meaningful than purchased objects, and they don't require participation in a system designed to extract your money. And here's the real cost that nobody talks about: the environmental devastation. The holiday shopping frenzy generates enormous amounts of waste. Products manufactured to be given as gifts often end up unused, discarded, filling landfills. The transportation of all these goods produces carbon emissions. The packaging creates mountains of trash. We're literally damaging the planet to fulfill manufactured obligations. Consider these statistics. In the United States alone, household waste increases by over 25% between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Gift wrapping paper and shopping bags contribute millions of tons of additional trash. Millions of gifts are returned, often ending up destroyed because it's cheaper than restocking. The carbon footprint of holiday shipping is staggering. The Stoics practiced living in accordance with nature. They would be horrified to see how our holiday rituals work against nature, generating waste and pollution to satisfy artificial desires. This isn't virtuous giving. It's collective madness with an environmental price tag. There's also the psychological cost of consumerism that's worth examining. When you buy things to fill emotional needs, you enter a cycle that can never satisfy. The new purchase brings a temporary high, then fades, requiring another purchase to chase the same feeling. This hedonic treadmill keeps you running without ever arriving. The Stoics understood that external possessions cannot provide lasting satisfaction. They watched wealthy Romans surround themselves with luxuries and remain miserable. They saw that the chase for more things created anxiety, not peace. They recognized that true contentment comes from within, from virtue and wisdom, not from accumulation. Epictetus, who lived with almost nothing, was notably happier than many wealthy people of his time. He had freedom they lacked. He wasn't worried about his possessions being stolen or lost. He wasn't comparing what he had to what others had. He wasn't trapped in the endless cycle of wanting more. The holiday season intensifies consumerist thinking precisely when we might benefit from questioning it. Instead of pausing to appreciate what we have, we're pushed to fixate on what we don't have and must acquire. Instead of finding contentment, we're manipulated into feeling lack that can only be filled by purchase. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying you should never give gifts, or never celebrate, or never enjoy this season. The Stoics weren't about deprivation for its own sake. They were about intentionality. They were about doing things because they're genuinely meaningful, rather than because you've been told to. If you want to give a gift that truly reflects your care for someone, wonderful. If you want to gather with family and genuinely enjoy their company, wonderful. If you find sincere meaning in religious or spiritual aspects of the season, wonderful. The problem isn't celebration itself. The problem is unconscious participation in rituals you've never examined, driven by pressures you've never questioned, serving purposes that may not be your own. The examined life, which Socrates said is the only life worth living, and which the Stoics pursued relentlessly, requires questioning everything, including the things everyone around you takes for granted. Especially those things, actually. The unexamined beliefs are usually the most problematic because they operate beneath conscious awareness. Let's talk about family gatherings, because this is where reality often collides most painfully with holiday mythology. The cultural image is of warm, loving families coming together in harmony, sharing meals and laughter, creating cherished memories. And for some people, sometimes this is true. But for many people, family gatherings are sources of stress, conflict, and emotional difficulty. Family relationships are complicated. There are old wounds, ongoing tensions, clashing personalities, differing values. Putting people who have these complications together and expecting them to suddenly embody holiday perfection is a setup for disappointment. The Stoics would approach family gatherings very differently than our culture suggests. They wouldn't expect perfection. They wouldn't require themselves to feel things they don't feel. They would prepare mentally for difficulties, recognizing that human beings are flawed and that conflict is natural. Marcus Aurelius wrote about difficult people constantly because he dealt with them constantly. His approach wasn't to expect them to be different, but to manage his own responses to them as they are. He would remind himself that difficult behavior usually comes from ignorance or pain, that getting angry at it doesn't help, that his task is to maintain his own equanimity regardless of how others behave. This is a revolutionary approach to family gatherings. Instead of expecting everyone to match the hallmark image, you accept people as they actually are. Instead of getting upset when Uncle Bob makes offensive comments or Aunt Martha criticizes your life choices, you observe these behaviors with a kind of philosophical detachment, recognizing them as their problem, not yours. The Stoics practiced something called the view from above, imagining themselves looking down at human affairs from a great height. From this perspective, petty conflicts look petty. The things that triggered you look small. You see the pattern of human drama playing out as it always has, and always will. Try this at your next family gathering. When tension arises, mentally zoom out. See the situation from above. Recognize that this is just humans doing what humans do. You don't have to fix it or change it or be hurt by it. You can simply observe it while maintaining your inner peace. But here's the deeper point. You also don't have to attend gatherings that genuinely damage your well-being. The Stoics valued appropriate action, action that aligns with virtue and reason. If a family situation is truly toxic, if attendance would cause significant harm, it's not virtuous to attend out of mere obligation. This is where Stoic thinking diverges from cultural expectations. Our culture says you must attend family gatherings, that absence is betrayal, that obligation overrides well-being. The Stoics would say nonsense. You have a duty to care for yourself as well as others. You're not obligated to sacrifice your mental health to satisfy social expectations. The key is intentionality. Whatever you choose, choose it consciously, with full awareness of why you're choosing it and what it will cost. Don't attend mindlessly because that's what you're supposed to do. Don't skip mindlessly out of avoidance. Make a deliberate choice based on your actual values and circumstances. Comment below with your honest experience of family gatherings. Not the polished version, the real one. Sometimes naming reality is the first step to dealing with it. Let's examine another illusion. The idea that the holiday season is about generosity and giving. On the surface, this seems true. People give gifts. Charities see increased donations. There's a general atmosphere of supposed generosity. But look more closely, and the picture is more complicated. Most holiday giving isn't generous in any meaningful sense. It's transactional. You give because you're expected to give, because you'll receive in return, because not giving would violate social norms and damage relationships. This isn't generosity. It's obligation dressed as generosity. True generosity, as the Stoics understood it, is giving without expectation of return, giving because it's the right thing to do, giving that costs you something meaningful. True generosity isn't scheduled by the calendar or mandated by social expectation. It flows from genuine care and virtue. Seneca wrote extensively about generosity, and he was clear that the spirit of giving matters more than the gift itself. A gift given reluctantly or to meet obligation or to receive something in return isn't really a gift. It's a transaction. The holiday gift-giving frenzy is mostly transactions masquerading as generosity. And consider who benefits from your holiday giving. Often it's people who don't particularly need anything, who already have more than enough. Meanwhile, people who genuinely need help, the homeless, the hungry, those in poverty, receive a fraction of the resources poured into gift exchanges between people who lack nothing. The Stoics would point out this absurdity. If you truly want to be generous, why not direct resources to those who actually need them? Why exchange gifts with people who have plenty when others have nothing? The answer, of course, is that holiday giving isn't really about generosity. It's about social ritual and obligation. There's also the issue of what our gifts actually communicate. We tell ourselves that gifts show love. But what do most gifts actually show? Often, they show that we don't know the person very well, as evidenced by gift returns and exchanges. Or they show how much we're willing to spend, making the gift a display of financial status. Or they show our ability to meet expectations, making the gift about obligation rather than affection. The Stoics would suggest that if you want to show love, there are far better ways than buying objects. Presence is more valuable than presents. Time is more precious than things. Attention is more meaningful than merchandise. A letter expressing genuine appreciation for someone costs nothing but conveys more care than most purchased gifts. Consider an alternative approach to holiday generosity. Instead of exchanging gifts with people who don't need them, pool those resources for meaningful giving. A family could collectively donate to causes they care about instead of buying each other things that will end up unused. Friends could give the gift of time together instead of purchased objects. The money saved could help people who actually need help. This isn't about being cheap or avoiding giving. It's about giving more meaningfully. It's about breaking free from the consumerist framework that has hijacked what could be genuine generosity. Now let's address the emotional manipulation of the season. The holiday period is engineered to make you feel things. Nostalgic music plays everywhere, triggering memories and emotions. Movies depict idealized versions of family and love, setting impossible standards. Advertising sells not just products, but feelings, associating purchases with warmth, belonging, and happiness. The Stoics were highly skeptical of emotional manipulation. They practiced recognizing when their emotions were being triggered by external influences rather than arising from genuine inner states. They understood that feelings could be manufactured, that you could be made to feel things that didn't reflect reality. When you feel nostalgic longing during the holidays, ask yourself, where is this coming from? Often, it's coming from music specifically designed to trigger nostalgia, from images crafted to create yearning, from a pervasive atmosphere of sentiment that's manufactured rather than organic. This doesn't mean your feelings aren't real. They are real, but they're being triggered artificially. The Stoics would say you should be aware of this, that you shouldn't let manufactured feelings drive your behavior, that you should distinguish between emotions that arise from your genuine values and emotions that arise from manipulation. Think about holiday movies and their effect. They consistently depict a world where holiday magic solves problems, where families reconcile perfectly, where love triumphs through grand gestures, where the spirit of the season transforms people. These are fantasies, beautiful fantasies sometimes, but fantasies nonetheless. When you internalize these fantasies as expectations, you set yourself up for disappointment. Real life doesn't work like holiday movies. Real families don't have perfect reconciliations. Real problems aren't solved by seasonal magic. Real love is built through daily practice, not grand gestures. The Stoics pursued reality, even when it was less pleasant than fantasy. They understood that building your life on illusions leads to suffering when those illusions meet the real world. Better to see clearly from the start, to accept things as they are, to work with reality rather than against it. This applies directly to holiday expectations. Instead of expecting magic, expect normalcy. Instead of requiring perfection, accept imperfection. Instead of hoping the season will somehow transform your life or relationships, recognize that transformation requires work that happens throughout the year, not seasonal fairy dust. Let me share something about the Stoic approach to time that's particularly relevant here. The Stoics didn't see time as divided into special periods and ordinary periods. They saw each moment as equally significant, equally an opportunity for virtue, equally part of the finite allocation of time each person receives. Marcus Aurelius wrote as if each day might be his last, because any day might be his last. He didn't bank on future time. He didn't treat today as a warm-up for some more important tomorrow. He lived with urgency and presence because he understood that now is all we ever have. From this perspective, the idea of waiting for New Year's to become better is absurd. Why would you waste the days between now and January 1st? They're just as valuable as the days after. They're part of your finite life. Treating them as countdown days before the real effort begins is squandering them. Similarly, the idea that Christmas is more important than other days makes no sense from the Stoic view. The opportunity for connection, gratitude, and joy exists every day. Restricting these to special occasions means missing them most of the time. The Stoics would suggest an alternative. Treat every day with the significance we typically reserve for holidays. Bring presence and gratitude to an ordinary Tuesday. Express love on a random Saturday. Feel the preciousness of time on any morning at all. Don't wait for the calendar to tell you when to be fully alive. This might sound like it would be exhausting, but actually it's the opposite. When you stop waiting for special days to feel special feelings, you discover that specialness was available all along. You stop riding the emotional roller coaster of holiday highs and January lows. You find a more stable, sustainable appreciation for life as it actually is. If you're finding this perspective valuable, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Most people go through the holiday season on autopilot, never questioning the assumptions they've absorbed. You could be the person who helps them wake up. Let's talk about loneliness, because the holidays amplify it terribly. The cultural emphasis on togetherness makes being alone feel like failure. Every image shows connection. Every song celebrates being with loved ones. If you're alone, by circumstance or choice, the season becomes a constant reminder of what you apparently lack. The Stoics had a very different relationship with solitude. They valued it. They sought it. They understood that the ability to be alone with yourself, at peace with your own company, was a sign of strength, not weakness. Seneca wrote that the person who is at peace with themselves can enjoy solitude, while the person who isn't will find no peace even in a crowd. The problem isn't being alone. The problem is being unable to be alone. If you need others' presence to feel okay, you're dependent. You've given away your inner stability. This doesn't mean relationships aren't valuable. The Stoics treasured genuine friendship, but they didn't need constant company to feel complete. They could enjoy solitude as much as society. They weren't running from themselves. If you're alone this holiday season, consider this. You have an opportunity that busy social calendars don't provide. You have time for reflection, for reading, for thinking deeply about your life. You can establish practices that serve you without interruption. You can enjoy the quiet. The loneliness you feel isn't caused by being alone. It's caused by the story you tell about being alone, the story that says you should be with others, that being alone means something is wrong with you. Change the story, and the feeling changes. The Stoics would also point out that many people surrounded by others are lonelier than those who are alone. You can be at a crowded family gathering and feel utterly disconnected. You can be surrounded by people and feel unseen. Physical presence doesn't guarantee emotional connection. True connection is rare and precious. It's not manufactured by calendar dates or obligatory gatherings. It happens when people are genuinely present with each other, when they see and hear each other deeply. This can happen on any day, in any circumstance, with one person or many or none. If you're alone, focus on the quality of your inner life rather than the quantity of your social contacts. If you're surrounded by others, ask whether you're genuinely connecting or just physically occupying the same space. There's something else worth considering about loneliness. The Stoics believed that ultimately we are always alone in a certain sense. Your mind is yours alone. Your experience is yours alone. No matter how close you are to others, there's a fundamental solitude at the core of existence. This sounds dark, but the Stoics found it liberating. When you accept essential solitude, you stop desperately fleeing from it. You stop needing others to complete you. You can enjoy relationships from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. You connect because connection enriches, not because you'll fall apart without it. Marcus Aurelius, despite being surrounded by people constantly as emperor, cultivated an inner solitude. He went inward, even in crowds. He maintained a private space of reflection and peace that external circumstances couldn't touch. This is available to you too, whether you're physically alone or surrounded by thousands. The holiday emphasis on togetherness isn't wrong in itself. Connection is valuable. But the frantic escape from solitude, the terror of being alone, the belief that aloneness equals failure, these are problems. They create desperation that actually undermines connection. They send you into relationships grasping rather than giving. They make you need people rather than simply appreciating them. If you can make peace with solitude, you become better at connection. This is the Stoic paradox. The person who can be happily alone is better company than the person who desperately needs others. Now let's look at what a Stoic holiday season might actually look like. Not joyless, not isolated, not contrarian for its own sake, but intentional, examined, free from illusion. First, a Stoic would release expectations. They wouldn't require the season to be magical or special or transformative. They would accept whatever arises with equanimity. Good day? Appreciated. Difficult day? Handled. No expectation means no disappointment. Second, a Stoic would be selective about participation. They would choose which activities genuinely align with their values and skip the rest. Meaningful gathering with people they actually enjoy? Yes. Obligatory attendance at events they dread? Why? Third, a Stoic would practice presence. Whatever they chose to do, they would do fully. At dinner with family, they would actually be at dinner with family, not mentally elsewhere. In conversation, they would actually listen. In moments of beauty, they would actually notice. Fourth, a Stoic would resist commercial pressure. They wouldn't buy things out of obligation. They wouldn't measure their love or others' love in monetary terms. They would give when giving felt genuinely meaningful and decline when it felt forced. Fifth, a Stoic would maintain perspective. They would remember that this is just another period of time, neither more nor less significant than any other. They would hold the season lightly, enjoying what's enjoyable without grasping, enduring what's difficult without drama. Sixth, a Stoic would use the time for reflection. The end of the year does provide a natural marker for looking back and forward, not because there's magic in the date, but because any marker can serve as a prompt for evaluation. What worked this year? What didn't? What do you want more of? Less of? Seventh, a Stoic would focus on virtue, not circumstance. They would ask not whether their holiday matched cultural ideals, but whether their behavior matched their values. Did they act with integrity, with kindness, with wisdom? These questions matter regardless of the calendar. This approach doesn't require withdrawing from the season entirely. You can participate in traditions that genuinely matter to you. You can enjoy celebrations. You can give gifts that reflect real care. But you do all of this from choice, not obligation, from presence, not habit, from clarity, not illusion. Let me address one more illusion, the idea that the new year will be better. We carry a persistent hope that the future will be better than the present. Next year will be my year. Things will turn around. The new year will bring new opportunities. This hope feels good, but it's often another form of escapism. The Stoics were cautious about hope because hope can become a way of avoiding present reality. If you're always looking to the future for salvation, you're never fully dealing with now. And now is all you ever actually experience. Will next year be better? Maybe. Maybe not. The honest answer is that you don't know. Predicting the future is impossible. What you can know is that your experience of next year will largely be determined by the same factors that determine your experience of this year. Your thoughts, your choices, your practices, your character. If you want next year to be better, don't hope for it. Work for it. And start the work now, not on January 1st. Examine what made this year difficult and address those factors. Identify what you want more of and begin creating it. Build habits that serve you, develop your character. Do the actual work rather than pinning your hopes on a calendar change. The Stoics believed that well-being comes from within, from virtue and wisdom, not from external circumstances. If this is true, then a better year isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through how you engage with whatever happens. This is actually good news. It means you're not at the mercy of fate. You're not waiting for luck to improve. You have agency. You can make changes that improve your experience regardless of what external events occur. The illusion says, wait for next year, hope for better circumstances. The Stoic truth says, work now, improve yourself, create your experience through your responses to whatever arises. As we near the end, I want to acknowledge something. What I've shared here goes against deeply held beliefs. It challenges traditions many people cherish. It might have made you uncomfortable at points. The Stoics welcomed discomfort when it led to truth. They believed that the examined life requires questioning even cherished beliefs, that growth requires releasing comfortable illusions, that wisdom means seeing clearly even when clarity is painful. You don't have to agree with everything I've said. The Stoics themselves valued independent thinking. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and above all, think for yourself. Don't accept my perspective or any perspective just because it's presented confidently. Test it against your own reason and experience. But I hope at minimum I've prompted some examination. I hope you'll look at the holiday season differently, seeing the constructed nature of traditions presented as timeless, the commercial interests behind apparent generosity, the illusions underlying expectations of magic and transformation. And I hope you'll consider an alternative, a holiday season marked by genuine choice rather than obligation, presence rather than pressure, reality rather than illusion. Not joyless, but honestly joyful when joy is real. Not isolated, but meaningfully connected when connection is genuine. The Stoics weren't against celebration. They were against unconscious living. They wanted to experience life fully, which requires seeing it clearly. They wanted joy that was real, connection that was authentic, meaning that was earned through wisdom rather than assumed through tradition. This is what I wish for you. Not a Merry Christmas or a Happy New Year in the conventional sense, but something better. Clarity, presence, genuine choice, and the peace that comes from living according to truth rather than illusion. There's a final thought I want to share. The Stoics believed that how you do anything is how you do everything. How you approach the holiday season reveals how you approach life. If you're unconscious during the holidays, you're probably unconscious the rest of the year too. If you're driven by obligation and expectation during this season, that pattern likely extends throughout your life. If you're unable to question cultural assumptions about Christmas and New Year's, you're probably unable to question other cultural assumptions either. This is why examining the holidays matters beyond just the holidays themselves. It's a training ground for the examined life. If you can see clearly here, you can see clearly everywhere. If you can choose intentionally during the most pressure-filled season, you can choose intentionally always. If you can find peace amid the collective madness, you can find peace in any circumstance. The Stoics used every experience as practice. A difficult conversation was practice in patience, a loss was practice in acceptance, a temptation was practice in discipline. The holiday season, with all its pressures and illusions, is exceptional practice in seeing clearly and choosing wisely. Use it well. Let this season be the training ground where you strengthen your ability to live consciously. Every moment of awareness you cultivate now serves you forever. Thank you for staying with me through this unconventional exploration. If it resonated with you, leave a like. Subscribe if you want more content that challenges assumptions and explores what it really means to live well. And comment below with the word clarity to show me you're committed to seeing past the illusions. Not just during the holidays, but in all areas of life. The world will keep spinning its illusions. You don't have to spin with it. You can stand still in truth while the fantasy swirls around you. You can be at peace while others chase manufactured emotions. You can be free while others remain enslaved to expectations they never chose. That freedom is available right now. Not on January 1st. Not when conditions are right. Now, Let me leave you with a practical framework for navigating this season with Stoic wisdom. Before any holiday activity, ask yourself 3 questions. First, am I choosing this freely, or am I acting from obligation or fear of judgment? If it's obligation or fear, reconsider. Second, does this align with my actual values or with values I've absorbed without examination? If it's unexamined values, question them. Third, will I be fully present for this, or am I just going through motions? If it's motions, either commit to presence or skip it. During any holiday activity, practice these Stoic techniques. Notice when expectations arise and consciously release them. When difficult emotions surface, observe them without being controlled by them. When other people behave in frustrating ways, remind yourself that their behavior is their business, not yours. Stay anchored in the present moment rather than comparing it to some ideal. After any holiday activity, reflect without judgment. What was genuinely valuable? What was mere performance? What would you do differently? What did you learn about yourself? This reflection builds wisdom that serves you not just during the holidays, but throughout your life. The Stoics believed that every experience was material for growth. Even a disappointing Christmas dinner or a lonely New Year's Eve can be transformed into wisdom if approached correctly. Nothing is wasted. Everything teaches. This is the Stoic secret to equanimity. Not that bad things don't happen, but that bad things aren't actually bad when they become fuel for wisdom. One more thing. If you feel guilty for questioning cherished traditions, for seeing through illusions others seem to enjoy, for not participating fully in collective celebrations, know this. The Stoics were constantly out of step with their culture. They questioned what others assumed. They lived by principles others didn't understand. They were often misunderstood and sometimes mocked. But they were free, and they were at peace. And in the end, their wisdom endured, while the hollow celebrations of their time were forgotten. You don't need anyone's permission to think for yourself. You don't need cultural approval to see clearly. You don't need everyone to agree with you to live according to truth. The examined life is yours to live, regardless of what others are doing. See you in the next video.